This feels very official. In a little chair. Okay, so I literally just finished this book and I had to talk about it. I started this book about a week ago. It's called The Dollhouse. And I was quite excited to read this because I first seen about it on Twitter and I was just, I don't know, I guess it just kind of looked exciting. I think it was featured in a giveaway or a competition on Twitter, and I just saw like a photo of the book and I thought that looks interesting. It's called The Dollhouse by Phoebe Morgan, and I entered the contest. I didn't win, sadly, but I decided to look it up on Amazon and it was only for £2, so I just decided to buy it. I'm pretty sure the back of a book has a better name than what we used to call it in school when you call it the blurb. I'm pretty sure that's like a child term for the back of the book, but I forget what it's called. I'm pretty sure it starts with an S, but I can't remember. Corinne's life might look perfect on the outside, but after 3 failed IVF attempts, it's her last chance to have a baby, and when she finds a tiny part of a dollhouse outside her flat, it feels as if it's a sign. But as more pieces begin to turn up, Corinne realises that they are far too familiar. Someone knows about the miniature rocking horse and the little doll with its red velvet dress. Someone has been inside her house. How does the stranger know so much about her life? How long have they been watching, and what are they waiting for? I was so excited to read this book, and I'm probably going to give it about a 3 out of 5, to be perfectly honest. I was a little bit disappointed by it. It got off to a good start, I suppose. The very first chapter is titled Then, so obviously it's talking about the past, and you're reading it and you can tell it's from the perspective of a child, and you're kind of, obviously when you don't know absolutely anything about the book, you're kind of thinking, right, well, what's this? Is this our main character? Is it them in the past? God knows. Then we're introduced to our main character, Corinne. I think it's pronounced Corinne. I'm not 100% sure. Corinne. We're introduced to our main character, Corinne, and her boyfriend, Dominic, who is a journalist. Corinne works in a gallery, an art gallery. She's very into her art. I don't know if she actually draws. I can't remember if that's mentioned or not, but she works in a gallery. Right from the start, you can tell Corinne is a very jumpy character. I'm pretty sure she got spooked by something in the first chapter, and my first reaction was, oh my god, did she see ghosts or something? It makes me want to like reread the start, just kind of go over everything again, but I'm not gonna bother. Our main character, Corinne, I had a few issues with. Only because I feel like she's a very weak character. I think that she does have... I can't even remember now, that's a stupid thing. But I'm pretty sure in like the first kind of chapters is that she does kind of suffer. I don't know if it was from mental health.
So I decided to go back and check it out because it was kind of bugging me. And I think all it was that she was suffering a lot after the death of her father. It's coming up in the 1-year anniversary since he died. And that's why she's very emotional, distressed. I think she refers to herself as acting irrational. As well as coming to terms with her father's death, Corinne and her boyfriend, Dominic, are also absolutely desperate to have a child. I'm just looking at a line here. I'd do anything to have a child of my own. Anything. I shouldn't laugh, that's not funny. So she's definitely suffering because of that.
She couldn't conceive naturally, so her and her boyfriend were going down the line of IVF. They've had 3 failed attempts, and they're currently about to go for their 4th attempt when we are introduced to them. I had a few issues with Corinne. I struggled to attach myself to her. I feel like I've been having that problem a lot lately, and I think what my issue is, Corinne really desperately wants a child. She's so desperately crazy to have her own child, and her older sister Ashley, who we also get chapters told from her perspective, has 3 kids with her husband James. I'll touch on them a wee bit later on. But Corinne is so obsessed with having a baby. Sometimes she can't even bear to look at her sister's own children because of how intensely her jealousy is, her envy. She is just so desperate to have a child. And I know that I feel sorry for women that do genuinely are their main goal in life is that they want a child. I sympathise with any woman who would love a child and just can't have one. She can't conceive naturally. Maybe IVF isn't working. I know some women really want that experience of being pregnant and having pregnancy. But my issue with Corinne's thirst and longing for having a child was that it completely took over her character arc. I feel like I didn't learn anything else about Corinne other than the fact that she really badly wanted a child and she absolutely loved her father who has sadly passed away. That's a major kind of thing in the story. When it was the entire character arc, just to me felt like that's all her personality was. Just, that's Corinne, she wants a baby. I feel like I learned nothing else about her. I don't know what her favourite movies are, her favourite food. Her life revolves around wanting to have a child. She gets money from her sister to pay for her 4th round of IVF, and I think it's after a week or so she's to take a pregnancy test. I think she's to wait like a week after the insemination, whatever it is they do with IVF. I really don't understand it. After a week or so, she was to take a pregnancy test, and she takes it, and oh my god, she's pregnant! Yay, finally! Our girl's pregnant. The first piece of the dollhouse that we find was a chimney pot that it gets caught in her door one day. She's trying to close it. She's trying to close this door and something's keeping it from opening. And she bends down and here's this chimney pot. Now, my main issue as well with this story, it centres around a dollhouse. This dollhouse that Corinne keeps getting random little pieces, starts stumbling upon these random little pieces of a dollhouse she's never seen in years. I couldn't, in my mind, work out how big this dollhouse was meant to be. And that, to me, it kind of ruined my visual of trying to picture, like, these dollhouse pieces. Because I had a dollhouse, and it sat about, like, it was, like, about this high off the table, about this wide, and, like, it opened out, and all the little things inside were really small, really fiddly. I struggled to come to terms to try and understand how big this dollhouse was. Because when the first item that she found was this chimney pot, this little chimney pot that she looked very much like the house that her architect father had designed and made for Corinne and her sister Ashley, and they loved playing with it, and their dad played with it, and their dad made all the furniture, and he bought all the little dolls for her. Our first description of the chimney pot when she picks up, so in my mind I'm first picturing it as like this tiny little red thing. But she describes it as being almost as long and as wide as her palm. So I was kind of like looking at my hand and going, it almost the same, like almost to me reminds me as if it goes from about here to about here. So I thought, that's the chimney pot. How big is this house? So then I pictured it as being this really big house. I thought, okay, it's like a big massive Barbie dream house. It's big enough for like a doll the size of a Barbie, and I thought maybe it sits on the floor and it maybe sits up quite high that you could play with it on the floor and you're maybe kind of sitting up or whatever. But then it's described as sitting on a table in the living room and they play with it. So I thought, but if a dollhouse is that big, then why does it need to sit on a table unless you were like a grown adult playing with it and they're kids in the book? So I don't know why. It's such a little minor thing, but it just kind of bugged me that I never got a proper description of the height of the dollhouse. Maybe I did and I overlooked it, but I struggled to visualise the dollhouse, although we never actually see the dollhouse. That's a spoiler, but it's not really. We never actually see the dollhouse, or we never get that proper, well, we'd see it in like flashbacks, but we never actually have Corinne with this dollhouse in a way that you're like, oh yes, there's the dollhouse, it sits a meter high and a meter wide. When I read the plot, I genuinely thought we were going to have the whole dollhouse was shipped to her piece by piece. I think she got about 4 pieces. A 400-page book, and we got 4 pieces of furniture. The first was the chimney pot, bit boring. And when she decided to tell her boyfriend Dom about it and say, look, this looks like the chimney pot from our old house, from my old dollhouse, he quickly dismisses it and tells her, no, you're being crazy. It's just a piece of, I can't remember what it's made out of. I don't think it's plastic. I don't think it's plastic, but she makes it sound as if it's made of the same material that real chimney pots are made out of, but it surely can't be on a child's dollhouse. So she tells Dom about it, and he dismisses it, saying, look, it just looks like a piece of scrap. I'm pretty sure in the description of where they live in like a block of flats, and the people upstairs are having work done. So he dismisses it at being like rubble left over from the work. So that's fine, we dismiss the chimney pot. Then she goes to work one day, and I think she's with a client or a potential buyer, and when she comes back over to her desk, there's a little piece of wood lying on the keyboard by the till. And she picks it up and she looks at it and she says, oh my god, this looks almost exactly like the little door that we had in our dollhouse. I think it's described as being like a bit of wood with like a nail or something used for the handle, and the handle's gold, and the handle actually like moves up and down like a proper handle does. And she gets so excited by this because, oh my god, it's the door from our dollhouse. And she shows it I think she shows it to her sister. She definitely talks about it to her sister, and her sister dismisses it. She looks at it and she kind of looks like just a piece of wood to me. So that was easily enough dismissed. Then Corinne and her sister Ashley, and Dom as well, go and visit their mother in Kent. And while she's there, Corinne asks about the dollhouse, and her mum is very shifty about it. And her mum says, oh no, the dollhouse and all your father's stuff, they're up in the loft. Late that night, while everyone else is sleeping, Corinne goes up into the loft and checks, and all her dad's stuff is gone, and the dollhouse is gone. And then the next morning she asks her mum about it again, and her mum dismisses it and says, oh no, you know, there's loads of stuff up there. It's there, all right. It is there. The whole plot to this book could actually have been easily summed up if the mum just told the truth and said, yup, I sold all your dad's stuff. That's probably another spoiler. But the third piece of the house that she receives, it's when she comes home from Kent, and I think Dominic goes to work. He's a journalist. I don't know if I already mentioned that. He's a journalist, and at the minute he's covering a house. He's doing a piece on an old house. I think it's an old Victorian house that's a bit kind of derelict, and a new buyer is taking it on and is going to do it up and restore it to all its beauty. He's doing a piece on it, so that plays a significant role. So he then goes back to work to finish his piece. Corinne goes home alone, and she comes inside, everything's fine, but then she finds a little rocking horse, is it gold or yellow? Can't remember if there was a description about it. She finds a rocking horse on her pillow. So now she's pure freaked out. Like this is no coincidence. This is a proper piece from her dollhouse. How else could it be on her pillow? Then I think Dom forgets his keys, and he gets locked out, and he throws stones at the window to get Corinne's attention. So Corinne goes outside to let him in the front door. I'm assuming because they're in a flat, they have to leave their house and go all the way down and let him in the front door. And when she comes back, she's telling Dom all about this rocking horse, which she has placed on the side unit in the kitchen. When she comes back in, the rocking horse is gone. Ooh, spooky. So of course, Dominic doesn't believe her. He thinks she's a bit loopy, which kind of bugged me a little bit. That the whole time, anytime something kind of weird or creepy happens, Corinne goes to Dominic and says, look, this is really weird. This looks like a piece of my dollhouse. And he's like, nah, why would it be? Why would someone do this? And he totally dismisses it. And he's always like, oh, you know, you gotta keep looking out for yourself. Think of our baby. Think of our baby. And it's a bit kind of like, okay. I think I just hate whenever there's a character in any kind of book, TV show, movie where something is clearly happening to them, whether somebody's just like playing tricks or messing with them, and the other characters around them just don't believe them or accuse them of just overthinking it and being crazy. And it's kind of like, Like, I hate that. I hate when you know the truth, or well, you don't really know the truth, but you know something's going on and no one else is believing the character, and you just get so heated by it. As well as Corinne's chapters, we also get chapters told from the perspective of her older sister, Ashley. We also get a few by Dom, but they're not as... All they really play a part in is just him brooding a bit about how Corinne's been acting. In Dom's chapters, he was very much describing how much he loved Corinne, and oh my god, I love her so much. I hope she's going to be okay. I just love her. She's my life. And all I can think of is, why? What do you actually see in this girl? She's a bit mopey and moody, and her longing for a child is her only personality. I don't remember her ever... She nearly drowns in the bath at one point. At one point in like the first couple of chapters. I'm no way bashing anybody that does struggle from like mental health, but Corinne's character just came off as very needy, very moany. She complained non-stop, and for every time like that she would have a moment of going on a rant about how the dollhouse is being sent to her piece by piece, and Dominic's reaction's just, oh, that's Corinne. She's a little bit crazy at the minute, but I love her so much. She's my life. I can't wait to have a child with her. I don't know. There was just no personality to Corinne whatsoever. And I just don't know why. What Dom actually sees there. Is that a bit harsh? She's not real. It doesn't matter. Ashley herself is going through her own problems. She thinks that her husband, James, is having an affair because he's non-stop at work. He always seems to be at work. He's working late at nights. He's taking secret phone calls. When it's thrown at you right at the start that she thinks this character's having an affair, you kind of have this feeling like, yeah, he's probably not having an affair. If you assume he's having an affair, chances are he's not having an affair. She also has 3 kids. There's Lucy, aged 15, Benji, aged 8, and Holly, the baby, who I can't remember. She's maybe about a year old. Honestly, I can't remember. That was one little thing I kind of disliked with Ashley's chapters. They spoke so much about her kids, and it took a while before the author actually told you how old the kids were. Like, you obviously knew that Lucy was some sort of like pre-teen teen because they always referenced her like being moody and on her phone non-stop. Casual teenage stuff. And Benji was... You got the impression that he was obviously very young. I thought maybe about like 6 or so. It was hard to judge. But I feel like it took a while before the author finally did say, oh yeah, something about like Lucy's 15. And I thought, oh, there. No, she referenced something about meeting James 16 years ago. And then about being pregnant with Holly quite quick. And eventually she made reference to her being 15. So I was like, yes, Lucy is 15. And then another point, she made a comment about Benji. Just a passing comment. Said he was 8. I was like, yes, finally I know the ages of these kids. It really bugged me. It really bothers me in a book. Like, I suppose it doesn't matter so much when it's adults. Obviously, you'd make reference if it was like an old woman or just a middle-aged man or a young child. But it kind of it helps me visualise better when I have an understanding of how old the kids are. Because you're kind of trying to range them from one to the other. And you're just kind of like, well, how old? How old? How old are they? I kept picturing Lucy as like this 10-year-old that was really tech savvy on her phone, but she's 15. Ashley is struggling a little bit with her family. As well as worrying about her husband having an affair, Ashley keeps getting phone calls. Silent phone calls, that anytime she answers it, it's just silence on the other end, and they're freaking her out, and she's pretty convinced it's the woman who she thinks James is having an affair with. The spoiler, this isn't no, it's not spoiler, but it's sort of spoiler, it isn't. I think a lot of issues I had in this book, that a lot of things could be solved by conversation. The mum was so determined to keep both her daughters' memories of their deceased father, who had only just passed away a year before, happy and remembering him as the man they absolutely adored. And that was fine. But when certain revelations came to light, it just felt like, well, surely when your daughter, it's not like Corinne and Ashley were two young 16-year-old kids and their father's just passed away, and the mum wants to shield them from all the terrible things that he's maybe done. They're about 30, I think they're like 36 and 39. I think Ashley's definitely 39, I can't remember what Corinne is. They're in their late 30s, mid to late 30s, so I just feel like surely you could have just been honest with your kids. Just tell them the truth, and that would have solved a lot of problems. There was a lot of creepy things. There was a rabbit, when they're in Kent, a dead rabbit is placed on the bonnet of their car, and they dismiss it. Corinna's really freaked out. The rest of our family dismiss it as, oh, you know, it could be some locals, just, they're always protesting something. I'm sorry. Who would ever see a dead rabbit at the side of the road, roadkill, lift it up and put it on the bonnet of some stranger's car? Now, fair enough, maybe if in some person's mind they saw this car hit the rabbit and then they saw the car they were parked outside a pub. They're parked at a pub and they think, oh my god, I'm gonna go and put the dead rabbit on their bonnet to show them, look what you did, kind of thing, right? That's about the only scenario I could really figure out why a stranger would do that to somebody else. But they dismiss it as like, oh, it's probably just somebody playing a prank or somebody doing some sort of protest, right? Even Corinne, who knows these dollhouse pieces are finding their way to her, 3 of them by this point, no, 2, just 2 by this point, but she's not more freaked out by it. And that to me, I don't know, I'd be concerned. I would be concerned. There was a lot of things, or the few things that were happening to her, I just feel, yeah, you could tell she was afraid by them, but at the same time, she would also just dismiss them. And the minute she found out she was pregnant, she used that excuse nearly every time. Like she'd be on the train and she'd be all doom and gloom thinking about what's been happening, the dead rabbit, the dollhouse pieces, someone being in her flat. But then suddenly she'd remember, I'm pregnant. Everything's okay. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. I wasn't a massive fan of the author's writing style, to be perfectly honest. I felt like in sentences, she used exclamation marks a lot when people were talking. And I just feel like exclamation marks, in my opinion, I would only use them if I was talking about, if somebody was really excited about something, like absolutely thrilled, like, oh my god, happy birthday, or Merry Christmas. Or if you're yelling at somebody and you're like, I can't believe you've done this. If you're pure yelling at them, but a lot of times exclamation marks were used. Like I remember one line in particular, the character of Ashley, she said James's name, so it was written like, James, with an exclamation mark, and then it was just, she says. And then like the sentence continued on after that. And I thought the fact that it was like, James, she says. I thought she says just always makes you think of something just speaking like normally, kind of just saying like, James. So I just feel like when exclamation marks were used a lot in the speech and you were reading like one after the other and you're like, oh my god, are we really excited? It just kind of, I don't know why it bugged me, but it did. Also as well, when characters were talking, and I don't know if this was done so you knew who was talking, but really it wasn't like it was hard to follow, but like you would have 2 characters talking to each other, like James and Ashley for example, and the sentences would go something along the lines of, hey Ashley, how are you doing today? Are you okay, Ashley? Like they kept calling each other by their names in sentences. Sometimes in like they'd say it in one sentence and then the very next sentence they'd say it again. And I was like, why do you keep saying each other's names? I don't know, I'm the sort of person that if I'm talking to you, unless we're in a group of people and I'm trying to get your attention, I probably won't say your name. Like if I'm with my friend Abigail and I won't just keep saying to her like, hey Abigail, how are you doing? So Abigail, what do you want to do? Hey Abigail, let's go get some... I don't know, it just bugged me that they kept saying each other's names in the sentence. Like, it's not like we're around several people. We know you're talking to each other. You don't need to keep using each other's names. It's different if, maybe like depending on circumstances, if she was like telling them off and she was maybe saying like, oh James, why did you do that? Kind of thing. That bugged me a little bit, but that wasn't as big a deal. It just was one of those things that kind of annoyed me a wee bit. Another thing that was quite sad in the end was that I found it a little bit predictable, and I was quite disappointed by that. Because normally I'm the sort of person, if I'm watching a mystery or reading a good mystery and it's like you don't know what's going on and you're thinking one thing and maybe your mind's set on one thing and then all of a sudden there's a plot twist and oh my god, you didn't see this coming. I love that. I love watching a good mystery and then the killer's revealed and you're like when Mad-Eye Moody wasn't Mad-Eye Moody in Harry Potter. Like that was one of those twists you love it. I'm trying to think of another mystery example. When Hans in Frozen turned out to be evil. But like little things like that come so unexpected, where if the villain is finally unmasked and you're just like, oh my god, and you're so surprised because you didn't expect it to be that character. But I kind of had an assumption early on. I had 2 guesses of who I thought, because to be perfectly honest, there's not a lot of characters in this book. Normally, you know, if you get a lot of characters thrown at you and there's about 5 potential suspects, you think, right, it's going to be one of you. Going by the backstory that we were given in the chapters that were entitled Then, they were clearly told from the perspective of a child, and you could see this child growing up, and the child was always with her mother. I quickly kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I realised who the mother was. And then I had 2 suspects of who I thought the child / now grown up girl was going to be. So when it was finally revealed, and it was supposed to be like a shocking, like, oh my god moment, I was just kind of like, yeah, called it. So that was a little bit, I mean, I can't really blame the author for that. Maybe it just means I'm finally getting smarter at reading between the lines. There was a lot of moments where you were like reading between the lines. There was a few things kind of thrown at you that you realised if you'd picked up on it. Would I recommend this book? Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not so bad. I feel like it was actually quite drawn out. When you think that really she only got about like 4 pieces in the end of her dollhouse. She got the chimney pot, the door, the rocking horse, and then at one point she eventually gets one of the dolls. I just feel like I was losing a bit of interest when I was about halfway through, and I just didn't really understand or wasn't really sure where the story was going. Really, the ending was a little bit predictable. The only thing I will say that kind of had me a little bit was in the end, when everything kind of comes to a head and all our main characters end up being absolutely fine. Some of them go through quite an experience. I don't want to spoil it, but some of them go through quite a bit of an experience and they come out of it basically okay.
Okay, so while I was editing this, I just remembered something else that I forgot to mention. So at the end, when Corinne and her stalker come face to face for the final showdown, I shall call it. Spoiler warning, by the way, just in case you want to read this book and don't want it spoiled for you. But basically, Corinne and her stalker come face to face for the first time, and it's in a busy train station. It's about 5 o'clock. I don't know if it's a weekday or like a Friday or something, but it's busy. There's people going about everywhere. And at one point, the stalker grabs Corinne by the wrist, and she talks about how their grip is so strong, and then at one point, the stalker stands on her foot really hard and firm. And all I could think about was, you're in a busy train station. Call out for help. And then Corinne gets away, and she runs, and the stalker runs after her, and Corinne says about like thinking that she's lost the stalker in the crowd. And I thought, just go to somebody and say, help me. I don't know. If it was a deserted train station, then yeah, I could have believed that more than it's a busy train station. A lass is running and somebody else is chasing after them. I'd be wondering what the hell's going on. Then, when the stalker catches up to Corinne, and they start fighting on the platform, of the busy platform, and all I could think of was, other people would be watching. Most definitely. No matter how busy it is, nobody's going to overlook two people scrapping on the ground, on the platform, near where the train is going to come in. Someday, surely, some good Samaritan would be over and trying to break them up. Staff would be on hand, on site, to break them up. I don't know. It really bothered me. Like, if it happened in a deserted area, or the train station was unusually quiet, or it was much later at night, that I could understand. But the fact that it's described as being so busy, nah, it bugged me. It really bugged me. But hey ho, I don't live in London, so maybe the store shit does go down and nobody intervenes. But oh well.
Oh, one other little thing. This is what got me. Corinne, who is shopping at one point, sees a baby shop that she normally avoids because her longing for a child, she can't bear to look at any other children or children's things. Sees this baby shop that she's always avoided, decides to go in for a look, and she ends up leaving with about 5 bags of things. And I think by this point she's about 6 or 7 weeks gone. And when she comes back to her work and her workmate is like making a fuss of all the stuff, and she's like, oh my god, you're pregnant? And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you I'm pregnant. And then she picks up this little pink baby girl and she's like, oh, are you having a girl? And Corinne replies, no, we actually don't know yet, it's too early to tell, but I'm hoping for a girl. And I just thought, I know it's 2019 and the whole argument of boys can wear pink, girls can wear blue. And I know that obviously many people are still quite traditional in the sense of like when it comes to like babies and newborns, like pink for a girl, blue for a boy. And I suppose that is still fine. There's nothing really against that in a way, as long as you're just not justifying that only girls can wear pink, only boys can wear blue. But that aside, but the fact that she bought a pink baby girl for the intent of hoping she was having a baby girl, for her though to just start buying like a pink thing already and be like, yep, I'm hoping for a girl. At that point I secretly hoped that she would have a boy. We don't know actually. Did we? We didn't know. But that was a little thing about Corinne. Maybe I'm just such a pessimist. Like if I found out I was pregnant, I'd be waiting until at least about like the 12-week scan, or I think that's like the big one. I'd be waiting until the 12-week scan, because especially when our girl Corinne has failed to conceive naturally and she's failed IVF 3 times, I'd be so worried that this baby just wouldn't develop on its own. Something would go wrong, she would miscarry it. So I'm a pessimist. I wouldn't be buying shit until I was at least about 8 months and that baby was in a month's time and everything was absolutely fine. Another little thing that kind of bugged me as well was that after Corinne is convinced that someone's been in their flat with this little rocking horse and placed it and then took it away again, and Dominic's very submissive, kind of thinking, nah, probably not, that's probably not the case. When he knows damn well that he lost a set of his own keys at some point, and fair enough, his attitude was kind of like, you know, it's not like it had our address on it, so people probably wouldn't know, no one's going to break in with them, and that's fair enough. I could lose my keys tomorrow out in the street, and as long as I didn't have like my name on it or anything, no one's going to know they're mine. But the sheer fact that he lost his keys, someone could have watched him drop them and followed him to his house. You know? You don't know what kind of scenario could have happened. It kind of bothered me that even after Corinne's convinced that someone has been in the flat and he dismisses it, even though he has lost his keys at some point and you don't know where they are. That to me, like, they took so long to get the locks changed. And Corinne kept going on about it, saying to him, like, you know, we should get those locks changed. I said to you we should get the locks changed. Why didn't you phone a locksmith and do it herself? Come on, Corinne. It's 2019. I think it's actually 2017 in this book. 2 years ago, though. Come on, Corinne. Answer the phone. Or ring up the locksmiths and ask them yourself. Be a big girl. You can do it. There's been nothing in the slightest to convince us that Corinne isn't perfectly capable of speaking on the phone. It's not like she's got major anxiety and she can't speak on the phone. phone them up yourself instead of moaning and asking your boyfriend to do it, because he's never going to do it. He didn't listen to you in the first place. I actually read this in a review. For being a journalist, Dominic is actually a bit thick, unobservant, and just... But yeah, I must admit, it was an okay book. I would probably give it just 3 out of 5. It wasn't even that exciting. Like, I think as well, the two main characters of like Ashley and Corinne, I never really got that attached to them, that I worried about them whenever they got into certain situations. So in a weird way, I wasn't really rooting for them. So when these sort of somewhat creepy things were happening, like the silent phone calls or the dollhouse pieces appearing, I just wasn't freaked out enough for them. So the thriller aspect for me wasn't really there. I was kind of curious to how it was going to go, and in a way I was really hoping that there was going to be some massive plot twist and it would be like, oh my god, it was her all along, or it was him, it was, oh my god, I can't believe. But nah, it definitely didn't end up being that creepy in the end. Not that it's like a horror or anything, but I was just kind of hoping for a bit of suspense. But oh well. Phoebe Morgan, The Dollhouse. 3 out of 5 for me. Could have been better. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I think I'm actually just getting a bit too picky now when it comes to books. I feel like I've read that many great stories that have really captured my attention. I think as well, especially when I'm starting to be able to like solve the mysteries. This video is probably going to be all over the place. But oh well. And I probably missed a few things out, as I always do. I am gonna have to start writing this stuff down because there is definitely stuff bugging me that I forgot about. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Maybe read The Dollhouse if you think it might be of interest to you. I probably haven't sold it very well. But hey, that's just my opinion. Goodbye.